I'm Nia-Malika Henderson here in the Washington Post newsroom. This is Wonk Fix. I'm joined today by Ezra Klein and Cillizza, who is here in the newsroom, and Ezra Klein, of course, is in New York. Big night tonight, Wednesday out in Denver. What are you expecting? I want to go first to you, Ezra, in New York. What are you expecting tonight?
I am expecting a whole lot of discussion about tax policy, which makes me very excited, but I don't know if that's going to turn into an interesting debate for the public. Look, I would actually break this down into single questions that both sides have to answer. I think for President Obama, the main question Mitt Romney is trying to get him to answer, the main thing that Mitt Romney is trying to get people to learn about Obama, is he promised unemployment would be 8%, underneath 8% if we passed the stimulus bill. And it isn't. It never was. Pretty much since the beginning of his administration, it has not been under 8%. It is not under 8% today. Obama will say, and I think there's legitimacy to this, that when they released that initial projection, which was in December 2008, they thought the recession was about 1/3 as bad as it actually was. So it's not that they got what was happening wrong, but they did get the severity of it wrong, and everybody did. The Federal Reserve did, private macroeconomic forecasters did. But Romney is going to try to push that. For Obama, they're going to try to make Romney basically answer for the fact that his tax plan doesn't add up. So Romney wants to say, look, I would have done a better job than you. And the Obama administration or the Obama campaign will rejoin your central plan, the thing you say you would do, the main thing people understand that you would do if you became president. The numbers on it don't work. You either need to raise taxes on the middle class or blow up the deficit. And Romney's going to have to somehow come up with something plausible sounding the president can blow up in a back and forth. That at least moves the issue off of the night, such that people don't come out as thinking the White House is completely right on this fact.
Fix, what do you think the toughest question is for Mitt Romney tonight?
Well, I think Ezra's got it right. I mean, I do think that at some point Mitt Romney is going to have to say, I think Barack Obama may put it broadly, he may put it specifically, but I think what he is going to say is, what would you do? What would you do if you were president of the United States? Because, again, Mitt Romney does not want it. No politician who's running in against an incumbent wants to talk in detailed specifics, because the problem is very difficult. If the fiscal cliff was easily solved, I mean, it's difficult politically speaking. They don't want to talk in specifics because they know as soon as they start talking in specifics, it gives the other side ammunition to pick apart their argument. But I do think that is where both Romney needs to prove himself and Obama feels he's on his strongest ground, which is to say, you may not love everything that I did the last 4 years. We tried our best. Things may not have worked exactly as we thought, but we have plans. I'm being honest with you. This is where we're headed. This is where we've been. This is where we are. This is where we're headed. What can Mitt Romney tell you that he would do specifically, differently, to put us in a better place? Not just, look, we're going to make sure the private sector grows more. Not broad things, specific things. And I think Obama will continue to try to draw Romney out on some of those specifics. I also think, and I agree with everything Ezra said, I also think that the thing that we often forget is the third person on stage, which is Jim Lehrer, the moderator. The question always with the moderators, how much do you push? Folks always want the media moderator to push hard, to force them to answer specific questions, to say, this, you didn't answer it, you didn't answer it. How far does Jim Lehrer push? Do they spend 45 minutes on closing the budget deficit, or what Mitt Romney would do specifically? Or does Lehrer let Romney say, or let Obama say, sort of the talking point platitudes that we've heard to this point? I do think that's critically kind of important to what we get at, because each of them can only do so much in pushing the other guy. You need the moderator to kind of get in there and decide, okay, we're going to go deep on this issue.
Nia, do you mind if I make one point on what Chris said? Because I think there's something really interesting that he brought up here, which is that if you thought about what Barack Obama ran against in 2008, the campaigns and the presidential administrations, he was putting himself in counterposition to. It was second-term Bill Clinton with its kind of small-bore policies, its non-transformational presidency. And then, of course, it was George W. Bush and his most recent 2004 campaign, Fear and Division. And if you look at if you look at what he is yoked to this year, the Obama campaign is yoked to, in terms of philosophy, it is second-term Bill Clinton. It is a kind of compromises and this sort of smaller bore, completely realizable efforts that have begun to define Obama's policy, which is, of course, is why Clinton gave that keynote speech. Then if you look at the nature of this campaign, when Chris says, you may not like everything I've done, and you may not even like everything I'm going to do, but you know what I'm going to do, and you're not really sure what this other guy is going to do, this kind of flip-flopping guy from Massachusetts. What that sounds like is Bush's 2004 campaign. Now, I know it's a model the Obama administration has thought about and studied, and it is, to me, just a sort of remarkable historical irony that sort of after the change campaign of '08, where this was supposed to be different than anything that came before, you really have, in a very important way, the sort of the second term Clinton and the second campaign of Bush informing the Obama campaign and administration's effort in a very, very deep fashion.
It's so devil you know versus devil you don't, which is the exact opposite of '08. I mean, there's no, it's kind of like, the bad things you think about me. You can't even imagine the bad things about this other guy.
What do you make? I mean, neither of these candidates have had great moments in the debate. I'm thinking specifically of Mitt Romney. His argument in the primary is sort of almost got into fisticuffs, seemingly, with Rick Perry. Can we roll that clip when he sort of manhandles Rick Perry?
I'm looking forward to finding your facts on that, because that just doesn't.
I'll tell you what the facts are.
Rick, again.
You had the word.
I'm speaking.
I'm speaking. The newspaper.
I'm speaking.
It's time for you to tell the truth.
You get 30 seconds.
Time for you
this
to
is the way the rules work here. Is that I get 60 seconds.
Well, no, but the American
and then you get 30 seconds to respond, right?
And they want
Anderson,
to hear you say that you knew
would you
had
please wait?
Working.
Are you just going to keep talking?
Yes,
Let me finish with what I have to say.
Still awkward all these months later.
Who's more likely to put their hands on whom first? What do you think?
Let me just say something quick, and then I'll let Ezra get to it. I think the thing that is fascinating about that one moment, I think Mitt Romney, by and large, was fine during the debates. I think that was not a great moment, and I think the $10,000 bet moment that's gotten a lot of were not great moments. And I think here's why. I think Mitt Romney is at his best when he is doing something in which there are established rules that he can learn, kind of internalize, and then follow. He's pretty good at giving a speech because there are rules to a speech. He is not, and he was good in the debates because there are rules. You talk for this amount of time, then the other person gets to talk, then you talk in. Well, Rick Perry in that clip is not following the rules. You see him appealing to Anderson Cooper. Anderson, to try, there are rules, and these things need to be. He's not great on his feet, and he's not great when flustered. This is the whole corporations are people too line. I remember being at the Iowa straw poll at the Iowa State Fair when he said that he was being heckled. He's not great in those moments when he gets flustered, and where the rules that he has kind of internalized for how you do well in these sorts of things are not being followed. And so that's just something to watch for tonight.
And what about Obama? He didn't. I mean, no one thinks these candidates are fantastic debaters. Remember in 2008, Obama had a pretty bad moment in New Hampshire. The likable enough clip. Could you guys roll that?
He's very likable. I agree with that. I don't think I'm that bad.
You're likable enough.
Thank you so much.
Not great, of course. Hillary Clinton went on to win that New Hampshire primary, and a brief moment of a comeback for her. Ezra, what do you think of that? Will we see a testy Obama tonight?
I don't think so. Look, there's something that we in the media do a little bit, which is right now both campaigns want nothing more than for us to downplay the expectations for their guy, right? So Paul Ryan comes on, he says, Mitt Romney basically always drunk. The chances he's actually going to show up sober on the stage nearly zil. He's probably going to be slurring his words. Joe Biden comes out, says Barack Obama has early onset dementia. I mean, what they want more than anything is for people to think these guys can't debate. And we, in a way, sort of abet that because we have for each of them these couple of moments, remember, from the campaigns, Romney making the $10,000 bet, Obama saying you're likable enough. But the fact of the matter is, in both the '08 campaign and then for Mitt Romney in the 2012 campaign, these guys came through dozens of debates to become the nominee. And the reason they did that is and I agree, I don't think either one is an inspiring debater. I don't think a debate is either one's absolute best format. And yet, I think they're both pretty good debaters. I think they're both solid professionals. I think these are guys who study. These are guys who know the issues fairly well. These are guys who are going to put in the work, who have been taken, in particular, Romney, who's had more time for debate camp very seriously. And I can't tell you how much I love how we keep saying they're at debate camp, because I remember what debate camps were at. I was young, and they were very nerdy.
You were that kid, Ezra, at debate camp?
Yeah. I actually never did debate camp or even did high school debate, but I remember that it was there. I mean, it was a kind of a joke. But anyway, and now that Mitt Romney and Barack Obama have to do it, there are moments in a presidential campaign when these men competing to be the leader of the free world sort of lose their dignity a little bit. And when we keep talking about them at debate camp, and the Romney campaign keeps saying, Well, we're trying to fluster him because when he gets flustered, he becomes a huge jerk who doesn't know what he's doing. Or the Obama campaign kind of leaks, well, we're trying to question him because then he gets super condescending and is the worst person you've ever met in your life. It's a moment where the two campaigns kind of agree to take away everybody's dignity. But I think in the end, you're going to have two fairly dignified, fairly effective candidates on there who are very likely going to turn in solid, careful, workmanlike performances. There is some chance one of them will make a big misstep, or that Romney feels so deeply he needs to take a risk that he'll make the mistake of going for zinger after zinger and try to run this like Mitt Romney's Comedy Hour. But I highly doubt it. I think these guys are careful, and what they're trying to project is, I am somebody you can trust with a difficult set of problems going forward into the next 4 years.
Who might go on the offense better? And we can take, Chris, you can take this question on the other side of the Fannie-Freddie clip.
I don't own stock in either Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. There are bonds that the investor has held through mutual funds. And Mr. Speaker, I know that sounds like an enormous revelation, but have you checked your own investments? You also have investments through mutual funds that also invest in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Makes me miss Newt Gingrich, the debater. Those were good times.
The look on his face in that clip is priceless.
Newt had the greatest debate strategy ever, which was just immediately villainize whoever was moderating it and get the crowd on his side. But regardless, look, to your question of who will play more offense, I think, first of all, I agree with Ezra that I think most of this debate will be less fireworks and less kind of sports metaphor driven. Oh, he's got the ball and he's driving it toward the goal line. I think really what we're going to be looking at is two guys who think they can win this race, who do not want to, in the first 30 minutes of the debate, give people a reason to think they might not be able to win the race. Now, I think Romney has a little bit more of the burden of proof on him, just because he's not the incumbent president of the United States. We've not seen him in this setting before. He is, we know, behind in key swing state polls. Again, I don't think that means that Mitt Romney is just right from the get-go going to start attacking Barack Obama on Jeremiah Wright. I mean, I just don't see any of those sorts of things happening. But I do think he will try to take the fight to Obama a little bit on the things that we've talked about. On, you said this would be a one-term proposition if you didn't get X, Y, and Z done. Well, I want to make that good. A lot of the things that we're hearing on the campaign trail, I still think the key is, how much does Jim Lehrer push the moderator? How much does he push them? And where does he push them? And how do they react to it? Because they're both going to be fine. Ezra makes this point. They're both going to be fine when they're asked about the economy broadly. They didn't become the president and the Republican presidential nominee by accident. They're good at this. Yeah. They need to be pushed off of those talking points. And then is where, if they are pushed off of it, then I think is where you see the kind of differentiation of who does better and who does worse.
Ezra, if you're Mitt Romney, what voter are you going to want to talk to most? Latinos, he's behind. I think Obama has a 70% share of those voters so far. He's behind with women. I think the gap is something like 18%. African Americans seemingly have largely written off Mitt Romney's candidacy. If you're Mitt Romney, who do you want to talk to?
I don't think debates are going to be well used for kind of slicing and dicing the electorate in that way. I don't think they lend themselves to that. You're talking to a very broad group of people. And by the way, you're not voters. If people are tuning into debates, people who care about the election are paying a lot of attention, by and large have their minds made up. Let me make one broad point here on sort of the way we have a tendency to talk about debates. They're not, I think we're talking a lot about, are they good debaters? How do they come off? What have their zingers been like? What about when they've gone to heated confrontations in the past? To a large degree, and of course I would say this, but I think this debate is going to be defined and in the end driven by how good their actual answers are on their policies, and that has a relationship to how good their actual policies are and how much they're able to say about them. Because what Mitt Romney and Barack Obama have been in a room doing for months now is coming up with ways to highlight what they see as the weaknesses in the other guy's platform. That's true for Obama on taxes, but also going to be very heavily true on Romney's budget promises, which are somewhat hard to make work. You're dealing with $7 trillion in cuts over 10 years. You'd have to cut everything that's not Medicare and Social Security by 40%. For Romney, you're dealing with the need to somehow connect what has happened in the economy, which many people are willing to say, look, it was a really bad time, and Obama did his best, even if we're not in a perfect position today, with some level of Obama's leadership. He's got to somehow convince people that the reason we're in a rough position today is because Obama didn't do a good enough job. And so I do think a lot of what's going to end up driving this is, and this is what's good about debates, because these are smart guys who've been figuring out the best cases to make against one another, is really what are the best cases and how well do these policies stand up to that kind of a light of day. One thing both of these guys have had, because in interviews when you're the president or you're the incumbent, you can really just decline to answer questions, as they often do, or say as Paul Ryan did the other day. The math takes a long time, and I bet your ratings wouldn't be good for it. You know, we're having long 15-minute blocks, and Obama and Romney are going to press each other and keep pressing each other, and nobody's going to be able to say, oh, well, this just isn't the time. I've decided not to tell you at this moment. They need to come up with something. And
90 minutes, I would say, Nia, just very quickly, 90 minutes when in a Republican presidential primary debate or a Democratic one, we've got 8, 9 people on the stage, isn't a lot. 90 minutes with 2 people, to Ezra's point. You can't, there is nowhere to run and hide in 90 minutes with just 2 people.
Do you think people are going to be able to stay awake for this debate beyond the first 30 minutes?
I mean, I think the first, let me say the first 30 minutes and it tend to be important, but I would say in general, so much of this is not viewed. I mean, look, millions and millions of people watch this live, but I think in the after action analysis, they're going to watch clips, they're going to watch it on YouTube, they're going to see it socially. So I think the whole debate matters because it drives kind of the coverage, but I do think that people are going to come to this, particularly younger folks are going to come to this in ways where they may not watch the whole thing beginning to end. Certainly from 9 to 10:30 tonight, they may watch it later, they may watch it tomorrow, they may watch it in clips. So I think the kind of splintering of how people view these things may change the kind of broader, this person won, this person didn't, this point was good, this point, because the coverage afterward is not going to be the 90 minutes of the debate. It's going to be 3 minutes of what people view to be the newsiest part of the debate.
Yeah, this is actually, I think, really key, and I want to tell you guys about a paper.
Quickly,
we talked about this a little bit on Wonkblog the other day. There was a study done in 2004 for the 2004 debates where they had a certain set of people just watch the debate, and that group of people, 24% said Bush won and 48% said Kerry won. Then they had about an equal number of people watch the debate and then an NBC analysis, sort of news judgment right afterwards panel that said Bush won. All of a sudden, 50% of the people thought Bush won, so that number doubled. And conversely, they did the same thing with Kerry, and again, where you saw an analysis showing Bush lost, and the people thinking Bush won went down from 24% to 19%. The narrative the media chooses out of the debate, and maybe there won't even be one because the media is more fractured than it used to be, but it can not only encourage or shape, but it can actually decide what people think they just saw. So it's going to be, some of it is actually, frankly, out of the candidate's control. What we end up saying later on tonight could just simply decide who people thought won the debate.
And there will likely be a quick narrative change on Friday when the unemployment numbers come out. And so we'll see what those numbers say. Chris, Ezra, thanks so much for joining me. This was great, boys.
Thanks,
and
Dan.
you guys have a great day.
We'll do our best.